So on last week, we started our discussion about parasitic protozoa. So just to recap, protozoans can be broadly classified based on their mode of locomotion. We identified some that have the pseudopodia. We identified those that have cilia and those that have flagellates, flagella to help with movement. Another class of or way that we can categorize or identify protozoa is based on the presence of a kinetoplast. Okay, some flagellated protozoans are distinguished by the presence of these little DNA containing regions known as a kinetoplast. So if you look at this organism under the microscope, you'll see some really dark areas that kind of looks like dark nuclei, and that's basically going to be some little dark DNA regions that we call kinetoplast. In order to confirm those, we use sequencing of the genomes, okay, in order to identify genetically related species of protozoans. Similar genomic background, cellular structure, but they cause very different human diseases, and they're transmitted by different vectors. So we'll look at some of the characteristics of kinetoplasts today. All of them are going to be motile. Again, they're going to have sort of a long, slender morphology or shape. All right. They contain a single flagellum. Most of them develop asexually. If you look at the image that I have here, you see this kind of long, slender body with the singular flagella attached. Okay, over here, this circular structure here is going to be the kinetoplast, and it is the shape of it is quite distinguishable from this nucleus here. So the kinetoplast would be this dark circular region here. Okay. There are different morphological forms of the kinetoplast. These protozoa are distinguished by the location of the kinetoplast in relation to the nucleus. Okay, so we have 4 different categories of kinetoplasts, and I do have a reading document that I will upload for you all to your Blackboard course to look at this in some more detail. But we have the tripomastigote, the promastigote, amastigote, and epimastigote. You should be able to readily identify these types of kinetoplasts based on their location of this DNA in relation to the nucleus. So these organisms can definitely cause human disease. Mostly they're going to be internal, like blood or tissue type diseases. Okay. One of the vehicles or modes of transmission for kinetoplastics are going to be arthropod vectors. Okay, so typically these mosquitoes or flies. All right, there's 2 species that we'll look at in particular that causes human disease, the Trypanosoma species and the Leishmania. All right, so these are human diseases that are caused by the Kinetoplasts. These are some types of protozoa that we're looking at here. Human African Trypanosomiasis. All right, this is also referred to as sleeping sickness. All right, you see this disease a lot in Africa and other continents and countries throughout Africa. It's caused by the Trypanosoma brucei. Okay, you can see again we have this long, slender morphology or body arrangement with this single flagella attached. This is a blood disease. It mainly affects, again, poor populations in rural areas of the sub-Saharan areas of Africa. All right. Human African Trypanosomiasis or sleeping sickness is transmitted by the bite of a tsetse fly. Okay. There are different reservoirs for this human pathogen. Or pathogen in general. Wild and domestic animals can serve as reservoir hosts, okay, before it is transmitted to the human. So this sleeping sickness is definitely serious because it can be potentially fatal if left untreated. All right, so what's happening is that once the host, the human host, is bit by the fly or the mosquito while they're trying to take a blood meal from us, the parasite is injected, all right, into our body, and it gets into our bloodstream. This parasite is multiplying in the lymph and in the blood. Symptoms of this infection include headache, fever, weakness, pain in your joints. It's so serious, such that so much so that it can cross the blood-brain barrier, and not very many organisms can do it, but this one certainly can. And so it can cause damage in the central nervous system. All right, those symptoms can be manifested as neurological changes, which will essentially lead to a sleeping disorder. And that's why we refer to it as sleeping sickness. Okay. This is just a schematic of the life cycle of the Trypanosoma species that causes sleeping sickness. All right. So the tsetse fly takes a blood meal, and this is basically when this fly or mosquito bites you on your arm. All right. And it injects the trypomastogotes. Okay. It injects the organism into your bloodstream. Okay. And it goes through various stages of development and replication, all right, in the human, all right. And when the tsetse fly again takes a blood meal, it's also going to take back up some of the organism, and this cycle of infection will continue, okay. Another disease that's caused by these kinetoplasts are the Chagas disease, all right. Chagas disease, also called the American Trypanosomiasis, is caused by an infection with Trypanosoma cruzi, all right. This one is transmitted by the triatomine bug, all right. So you should be able to distinguish between these two illnesses that are caused by Kinetoplasts. You should be able to compare them. You should be able to tell me the method for transmission. So for this one, it's the triatomine bug, and it's sometimes referred to as the kissing bug. All right, this particular disease is typically found, again, down here in these South Americas, or South American countries. All right. This triatomine bug, this is the vehicle, the transmission, route of transmission for Chagas disease. This Trypanosoma cruzi is transmitted by the kissing bug. Okay, so humans get infected when, the kissing bug becomes infected when feeding on these infected animals or other humans that are already infected, and they harbor the parasite. All right, humans are infected when the kissing bug enters, bites you basically, and that's when the organism enters your body. Okay, so the bug feeds on human, and after this bug feeds on or bites you or gets his meal, the blood meal, it defecates. Okay, and the organism will be released from this kissing bug in its feces. Okay. There are two main phases of Chagas disease. Okay, you might see an acute response that can last, short term for some weeks to a few months. Is usually going to have some very mild symptoms, such as a fever or headache. The symptoms can go away on their own. However, if you end up with a chronic infection, it's going to last for a very long time post-infection, over 10 to 20 years. And it can result in some very severe symptoms, such as arrhythmias, irregular heartbeats, congestive heart failure, difficulty swallowing. Those can be potentially life-threatening side effects of this disease. Okay, so here's the schematic of the life cycle of the Trypanosoma cruzi. All right, it causes trypanosomiasis, or American trypanosomiasis, also known as Chagas disease. So the triatomine bug stages, so it's in two phases as well, where the bug takes a blood meal, all right, and it's basically, again, gonna pass out the trypanosomiasis in its feces. All right. When this bug takes a bite of the human, okay, in order to get a blood meal, the organism will be released into the human blood. All right. Development will continue, and the cycle will again repeat itself when the kissing bug again takes another blood meal and it takes up the organism. And it will continue to multiply in the triatomine bug, and it will continue to multiply and be released again in the feces, or develop in the fly, and it'll be released again in the next cycle of that bug trying to take a blood meal. So do take a moment again to understand what's happening with the life cycle of both of these organisms and their potential, or their the disease that they cause. Okay, so Africans, sleeping sickness, and then the American Trepanosomiasis. Leishmania species are also examples of parasitic protozoans that are Kinetoplasts. Okay, the Leishmania parasite is transmitted by way of the phlebotomine sandfly. The disease that it causes is Lesmaniasis. All right, these infections are also seen in the tropics and subtropics. Okay, it typically affects very poor populations. And again, this is just a micrograph of what this organism looks like under the microscope. You can see we have that long, slender body with the single flagella attached. We have a kinetoplast right here, and then this is our nuclei. All right. This image right here is a picture of what the phlebotomine sandfly looks like. And it is the bite of the female sandfly that's responsible for transmitting this parasite to the human host. So the disease, Leishmaniasis, all right? Leishmaniasis can exist in 3 different forms. Okay, you have the visceral form where it's affecting your internal organs. This is the most potentially fatal form of Leishmaniasis. You have a cutaneous form where you basically kind of have skin sores. And this one is pretty much the most common one. You're going to have like scars or ulcers that might form. The mucocutaneous destroys the mucosa lining of your, nose and throat and mouth. This one is more rare. Okay. So I would like you to be able to, understand the disease that's caused by infection with Leishmania species, okay, which is transmitted by that phlebotomine sandfly. Okay, Leishmaniasis can exist in those 3 forms. Again, we have that visceral form, which is the most harmful, the most potentially harmful form of Leishmaniasis. And you have the cutaneous, where again, it's characterized by skin sores. All right, this is the most common type that we see here. The visceral form, again, is a more severe form. It's going to affect your internal organs. And then you have the mucosal form, where again, this parasite is affecting or destroying the mucosal lining of your throat and nose and so forth. All right. So life cycle, what does it look like? This sandfly takes a bite of the human. All right. That's when the Leishmania parasite is injected into the blood. All right. We're understanding that, again, we see these in very poor countries. All right. Rural, poor, tropics, subtropics. Okay. The life cycle of the Leishmania parasite, again, we have a sandfly taking a blood meal. It's going to inject the promastigote of the parasite. The promastigotes are going to be phagocytized by our blood cells, trying to get rid of them. It's going to continue to develop or transform. Multiplication takes place. Another sandfly comes by and takes a blood meal, and it's going to ingest those infected macrophages. All right. And those ingested parasites are going to continue to develop in the sandfly, and the cycle will repeat itself on the next blood meal. All right. All right, Plasmodium species. This is another category of parasitic protozoa that are considered to be kinetoplasts. Okay, we talked about parasitic protozoas, the Plasmodium species, a little bit already, but this is the organism that causes malaria. Okay, this is the most common parasitic infection in the world. Your homework tonight is to distinguish between the 4 morphological forms of Kinetoplast. Okay, there's a slide earlier that listed those 4. Go out, do a little research, and make sure that you can distinguish between those 4 morphological forms in relation to the location of the Kinetoplast in relation to the nucleus. Okay, and then I want you to fully characterize one of the human diseases that are caused by a kinetoplast. We just went through a few of them. Okay, the American Trepanosomiasis, sleeping sickness, Chagas disease, Lesmaniasis. Those are all examples of human diseases that are caused by a kinetoplastid. In your response here, I want you to include what kinetoplastids are, the disease name, the route of transmission, and the manifestation of the disease. What does it look like? All right. What are the developmental stages for this organism? All right. We'll stop there. All right. Thank you.